Welcome again to the Melling Law YouTube channel, where we talk about different estate planning topics relevant to Utahns. For today's YouTube Tuesday segment, we're talking about the estate tax and different other taxes associated with estate planning and probate. I think too often I get these questions, and oftentimes the answer is it's not an issue. I think for several years, especially in the late 90s until about 2012, because of the laws existing at the time, there was a lot of hype about the estate tax, and because really this estate tax would tie in for most middle class families. So it's a big concern for a lot of people. Now the exemptions have gone up to a point where really we're not worried about estate tax at all unless somebody's worth more than $5.5 million. And for a married couple, closer to 11 million. So the estate tax isn't really on our radar, but there are a few other tax considerations that we do take into account as part of an estate plan. One of those is gifting and capital gains. So we're kind of always weighing our options. A lot of people, what they want to do is just gift their property before they die, maybe to their kids or loved ones. What they don't realize is that if this property is appreciated in value quite a bit, that there could be issues later on when the person they've given it to tries to sell the property. So let's use an example. Let's say there's a cabin, and the cabin, the property that it was built on, maybe it was inherited by mom and dad years ago. So their tax basis or the value at which they received it was, let's say, $10,000. And now maybe it's worth $100,000. Now, if you were to gift that to somebody during your lifetime, that cabin, if they were to sell it, their tax basis or the amount that the IRS is going to look at as far as determining capital gains upon sale, instead of being the value it was when you gave it to them, is the value when you received it. So this cabin, if you were to give it during your lifetime to somebody and they were later to sell it, they would be taxed on any difference between the sale price and the $10,000. So if they sell it for $150,000, they're going to be having to pay capital gains on $140,000. But let's say instead of gifting it to them during your lifetime, you were to leave it to them in a trust or by will, some way where the transfer is triggered by death. Then under current law, what they get is called a step-up in basis. So instead of paying tax on the difference between $10,000 and $140,000 or $150,000 when they sell it, they're only paying tax on the difference between the value on the date of death and when they sell it. So let's say it's worth $100,000 when you pass away. They're only paying tax then on the difference between $100,000 and $150,000. So $50,000 instead of $140,000. So it greatly reduces the tax liability upon the sale of the property. So usually what we're trying to do then is to, now that we're not as worried about the estate tax, is we're trying to trigger as many transfers, especially of appreciated assets, of assets who have increased in value. We're trying to delay those transfers until death, whether that's triggered through some kind of living trust, whether it's through a will, through probate, or some kind of other trust instrument. We want that transfer triggered by death, so you get that step up in basis, so that when those assets are sold later on down the road, there's a lot less in tax that's owed. So in estate planning, usually what we're worried about is gift tax, estate tax, and capital gains. Just keep in mind that the gift and estate tax is kind of joined up right now, if you will. They are woven together, and it's kind of a joint lifetime exemption amount of $5.5 million. So unless you've got more than that, we're really not worried about estate and gift tax as much. The one we are worried about is capital gains. So because we're not as worried about estate tax, we're trying to transfer as much as possible to death, so that we're minimizing capital gains, and really that's about it. So if you have any questions about tax planning through estate planning, you can talk to an estate planning attorney or an accountant or a team of professionals depending on your situation to find out more about how to plan for your estate and minimize your tax liability.